Hello and welcome to episode 211 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the actress Natasha Colzan. We get to sit down and talk about her amazing performance in the brand new TV adaptation of the incredible game Halo. This is a great interview and Natasha's so honest from start to finish. We get to delve deep all about what made her want to get into the world of acting and so much more. And that interview will be coming up in just a couple of moments' time. I always like to use the intro of each and every episode of Mark and Me to touch base and talk about my previous episode. On episode 210, I was joined by Connie from the amazing band See You Space Cowboy. This was a very open and honest conversation, one of the most detailed and I think just harsh realities of interviews that I've done. And the feedback was amazing. I've seen so many people go and check out the band now and fall in love. And that for me is the biggest compliment of podcasting. So thanks everyone that tuned into that interview. And again, a massive thanks for Connie for coming on the show. But today it's all about Natasha and acting and so much more. So I think the best thing to do is to get straight to it. So here's me and Natasha talking all things TV and film. Natasha, thanks for taking the time to join me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What I like to do, Natasha, is for the listeners out there that might be discovering your work for the first time, is give them an idea of how you basically got to be the person you are today. So let's take it right back to the very start. Maybe when you were growing up, can you remember certain films or TV shows or performances from actors that made you fall in love with the idea of being an actor yourself?
I remember I remember performing for my parents, do you remember the National Lottery was like a thing that you used to watch on a Saturday night?
Every time at like 6:45 at night, and you're like, oh, I missed to go to the newsagent in time.
It was like an event, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they did some performances, I'm pretty sure, like halfway. So I used to just perform for my parents. It's quite sad really when you think about it, isn't it? Just like this lone child in the living room. Performing, they were probably like, "Oh God, give it a rest."
Every Saturday as well, without fail.
Every Saturday. But in terms of performances, I don't know. I think I just loved performing myself. I think there's like an escapism maybe that I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily if I saw someone else and thought that's what I want to do. I think at school, doing drama during school was such an outlet. Like I loved it. Loved being another character. And probably feeling emotions that I didn't allow myself to feel in real life.
But even during those school days when obviously I used to love performing arts one the most, it was always the time that I was like, oh, I haven't got to sit with a pen and do loads of work. It felt creative. It felt good. Can you remember at that point ever thinking to yourself, hopefully I can make a kind of career out of this? Or, was it just a dream at that point? Or did you think there could be some reality to it?
No, I didn't think there could be reality to it. I grew up in Hastings, so
yeah.
We weren't connected to anyone in the industry. I didn't know how it was feasible. And I remember at college, I was studying drama, A level, and it got towards the end when you're doing, your second year of A levels, and you're like, okay, got to look forward to university now. What am I going to do? And I started looking at drama schools, and drama schools at that time in 2004, you couldn't get a student loan. You had to pay the fees up front in cash. And my family don't have the money. So
no.
That was like, oh, okay, that was the only route I knew as well. It was like, oh, that's what actors do. They go to drama school. Like I didn't know that you could just up sticks and move to London and maybe give it a go. And I don't know if I had the confidence really to do that at the time anyway. So that kind of put paid to the idea actually. And then I decided that I would just pursue other loves. And one of those was writing and journalism, which is what I ended up doing for a few years.
So how did it come back around that obviously I know you've been doing shorts around sort of 5 years ago and got back into it that way, but how did it come about? Because were your family then, obviously if you're saying, Mum, Dad, can I have £5,000 cash to do this? And they're like, no. Were they then trying to talk you, around not doing it and like, look, you need to get a real job, you need to settle down and do something different? Or were they still hoping you could do it, but maybe not by asking them for thousands of pounds a year?
No, do you know what? My parents have always been quite hands off, but very encouraging. So
Okay.
they'll never try they didn't go to uni. So they weren't sort of switched on and with that kind of stuff. They were very much just like, you do what you want to do what makes you happy, and we'll support you in that, but we can't financially support you. So they were always supportive, but they couldn't, and they were always there. Like I'm so grateful for my family and the fact that my parents were always there physically, like in presence rather
Yeah.
than, they didn't have money, but they've always been there encouraging me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think, yeah, just sort of, it was my decision really. I think I decided, okay, it's elitist, it's closed off, it's not for the likes of me. So I need to think about what I'm going to do next, and like I need to put that to one side. And I did for years. And I went to uni, I dropped out, I asked around, I went back to uni, also far asked around. And then I finally graduated at 25 and started working, doing internships. I got an internship at the FT and then another internship at a travel magazine, Condé Nast Traveler. And then started working as a kind of freelance journalist, not really sure where in the industry I was going to head or land. Ended up being a news reporter, online news reporter for a few years. And then I just got kind of bored of it.
Yeah.
And then I just, I don't know, I think there was that thing inside me that was always like, you haven't really given the other thing a go yet.
Yeah.
And I in that time from 18 to 25 and sort of in my late 20s as well, I just kind of ignored it. I kind of suppressed it. And I didn't even look out for, Amdram or anything like that. I think I was just like, no, right, now I'm doing something else now. And then when I left journalism, I went to a homelessness charity and switched into PR. I did sort of like comms and marketing for this homelessness charity for about a year and a half. And whilst I was there, I started modeling randomly. And I was in quite a lot of debt. And the modeling, that kind of started to snowball towards my late 20s. And I ended up sort of getting a bit of money from one job that was quite well paid. And I put that money on some of my debt, but then I also put it on some acting lessons. And I thought, okay, because at the time in your late 20s when you think, I'm old, when you're like 28, you've got this warped sense of being old because you're approaching your 30s and you're like, well, okay, as soon as I hit 30, that's like doom. That's when I fall off the cliff and can never,
everything ends. Yeah.
Life ends at 30.
Yeah.
And you think that you were supposed to have it all sorted by 30, that you'd have the career, you'd have the family, you'd have the flat or the house. And then you get to 30 and you're like, oh, what?
Well, I'm nearly 40. I've just been 40 and I've just gone through the whole motions again of like, I thought I should have settled down by now and have this and have that. So probably I'll be still thinking it in when I'm nearly 50. So I don't think it ever stops.
No, I don't think it stops either. And I try and say that to my nieces now. I'm like, I'm very honest with them about the fact that we don't know what we're doing. Like no one knows what they're doing. They're just fucking winging it all the time. Everyone's full of shit. And I wish I had kind of had more of an understanding of that when I was younger, because you just, the pressure's real, isn't it? When you're younger, you put all this pressure on yourself to, right, I've got to get good at my exams, and now I've got to get a job, and then I've got to be in this career forever. And sort of towards my late 20s, I just thought, okay, it's now or never, which looking back in hindsight is a ridiculous notion, because something like acting, you can do at any time. And obviously, if you're going to train to be an Olympic sprinter, then maybe cut off. But with everything else, I'm like so behind, the proponent that you can do anything at any time, and especially now. So I put money on acting lessons. Didn't really think it would go anywhere. It was just more like, let me just try it, because I don't even know if I still like it. I don't know if I'd be any good. And then I started doing that, and it kind of snowballed as well.
So I saw that you had a number of shorts, which were only like sort of 5 years ago. And is that kind of your first introduction of how the whole thing works as a production, how you see how a producer works, a director, and how it is really different than just dreaming of becoming an actress?
Yeah, that was really helpful actually. I think because I didn't go to an established drama school,
Yeah.
that's usually the route, you go to LAMDA, RADA. But because I was 30 and had bills and whatnot, and I couldn't really afford to go back and do an MA or whatever. Because again, you have to pay for it. I think you get a student loan now, but I just didn't want to take even
Yeah.
more fucking student loan, which I'm still paying off, my
Me
original one.
too. It's the worst. Every time I get paid, I'm like, ugh, like, was it worth it? Those hangovers, like now, 20 years later, they're not worth it.
Yeah, it was like Freshers Week worth it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
No,
It's
I don't think
haunting
it
me
was.
now, and now a Freshers Week would just probably kill me, the exhaustion from it. So now I'm like, oh, why you still punish me every month, reminding me?
Literally, I just think we're taking it to the grave now. I
Yeah,
don't think we're going to be getting rid of that anytime
no,
soon. So yeah. So then one thing led to another, and so not going to drama school, that was, I guess, a little bit of a hurdle in terms of getting agents and training. And I saw doing short films and fringe theatre as part of my training, I
yeah,
guess. Because especially fringe theatre, like it's not paid really, it's profit share and you get about 30 quid at the end. But the training that you get from that is just
it's
incredible.
priceless.
It's priceless. Yeah,
Uh,
the networking, it's just on the job training basically, and it's really
And that's the
handy.
way I think the best way to learn is, sometimes you could sit there and like do guitar lessons and learn all the textbooks and buy all the books, or you could go on YouTube and watch someone and just actually learn yourself. And I think
Yeah,
the practicality of getting your hands dirty, going on sets, seeing how everything works, never saying no to anything, always getting involved in all this. I've heard many stories from many actors and directors, and it is the best way. And those lessons you learn from people that are in the industry that do it every day it beats any textbook out there in the world.
yeah, definitely. And especially when you're starting out, I think it's really hard to suddenly demand, especially if you haven't gone to drama school as well, to be like, right, I'm a paid actor now.
Yeah.
You've kind of got to prove yourself a little bit, and you've got to, you've got to get a show reel together. So you kind of need to do those short films to get the footage.
And one of the big breakthroughs when you look at your IMDb page or your career so far to date, obviously you've still got years ahead, you know what else is around, but to get to work in, Men in Black International, it's not a huge part, but the fact is you got to be involved in this huge production, you got to see these big stars and how a production is run on a big budget, and I suppose everything was on a whole other level to stuff like your shorts for Dreams, Sam, Good Grief, all those sort of ones. This is a big step up.
Yeah.
So was that a bit daunting and terrifying? Were you like, oh my God, like I was not quite ready for this?
Do you know what? So before, when I was doing my actor training, I was also doing extra work. And I was an extra on Star Wars, episode 8, I think it was, and a couple of other big productions.
Yeah,
That actually prepared me for that role. So being an extra, seeing a set of that magnitude with all the extras, the props, all the crew, that actually having been on those sets as an extra in such a low risk environment where you're not expected to do anything apart from, do what the second AD tells you to do. Don't look at the camera,
yeah,
preferably. Um, and that prepared me so that when I was on that set, I actually recognized a few of the other extras from the extra work that I'd done before,
oh,
and it
that's
felt
cool.
familiar. It was really
Yeah,
weird. Like, okay, now I know what's happening here. I know, when they're shouting, right? Okay, first positions, and it was less daunting, but it was daunting nevertheless because it was Men in Black, and I love Men in Black.
yeah,
They were,
growing up there were those films that are
oh,
just great for everyone. The whole family can watch those and enjoy them.
I've still got, I think, the Men in Black theme tune on my playlist on Spotify, my main playlist.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then obviously from there you did more TV work, but the main one now, and this must be the most fun, the most exciting, is Halo. As a kid, for me, growing up on the Xbox, I'm not sure if you were ever a gamer or you might have been around gamers, but Halo was the game that everyone talked about. So when everyone talked about this becoming a TV series, there was a lot of kind of, oh, is it going to work? Is it being too, but the production team behind it, all the brains that go into it have done it justice and everyone's loving it. But how did it come about for you to get involved in such an established, incredible TV series?
It was amazing. So I auditioned along with a bunch of other tall actresses. Um, And yeah, I think they must have had a whole squad of like netball players or something in the waiting room. But they, yeah, I auditioned, um, and it was the audition itself actually was quite phenomenal because I was in the room with two exec producers, Otto and Toby. Before we even did the audition, we just chatted for about 20 minutes about the role. In fact, the first question he asked me was, what does it mean to be a Spartan? And that I think could throw you if you hadn't done your research.
Yeah.
And as the journalist in me, it goes deep on the research. So I was quite prepared, and yeah, and then got the role. And then from that point, it was like full steam ahead with training and research and looking at Halo, looking at Spartans, preparing to be a Spartan physically.
Was it quite demanding physically with the regime that you had to go through to get into that? Was it like 5 days a week working out, really kind of hard work?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I wasn't fit, I wouldn't say, before I got the job. And when Otto called to offer me the role, he wanted to, as well as offering me the role, I think he kind of wanted to preface it with, this is going to be really hard. And are
Yeah.
you okay with that? But obviously, as a new actor, I'm like, please take my blood, sign me up. Like, I'll do anything. So I was like, yeah, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And it was in the end, but I did have a kind of like realization of, okay, I now need to embrace fitness in a way that I'd never done before, because I just hated the gym. I hated fitness as a culture. And then I had to do a 180.
And how was that? Because I would be like, even though I want this job, even though it's going to be amazing for my CV, my career, it's going to open some doors, I cannot be asked to get up and start running or going on a treadmill. I'm like, I'm all right, thanks. Like, my research will be sit at home, eat crisps, and play Halo.
Yeah, exactly. And that was some of my research and reading the
Yes.
Catholic novels. But do you know what drove me? I think it was fear above
Yeah.
everything else. Like, it wasn't the love of it. It was like, oh, I'm really worried that they're going to see that I'm shit and then chuck me off the production or something. So that fear was enough to get me in the gym. And yeah, then I started immediately. As soon as I got the role, I next week started with a PT. And then a couple of months before we started filming series one, they got a sort of trainer in for us, and me, Kate, and Bentley, the three Spartans of Silver team, aside from Master Chief, we would meet in a CrossFit in East London 3 times a week as well, and do some CrossFit for 2 months before we went. And we had a boot
Christ.
camp in Budapest. We flew over specifically for a boot camp in Budapest.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and learned about military tactics and weaponry and some shooting. And yeah, it was kind of all encompassing, the training.
So talk to me about when you're actually on set though. So you've done all this training, you've done all this, your body's prepared, you're like, oh my God, this has been a hell of a journey, but we're ready, we're going on to set. How was it? Was it just how you imagined, or were you kind of like still a bit like starstruck in the way of, God, this is huge. This
Yeah.
is such a big deal. This isn't just a short. This is a huge production. There's big companies, there's investors, there's going to be massive directors, and I know that the scale of this is on another level.
Yeah. That you definitely feel that pressure when you see it, because the scope of the show, the production values are just incredible. And you walk on those sets, and so much of it was real.
Yeah.
I think there was a concerted effort to have as little CGI, I suppose, as possible. They wanted a lot of the sets to be very real, and our costume as well, our armor, I think weighed about 35 kilos. So
Christ.
really, in terms of the training, it wasn't just to have the physicality of a Spartan, it was to also, as Natasha, be able to handle that fucking armor, which was next level. It was hot and claustrophobic and tight. And when we first put it on, it was a bit kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to survive
Yeah.
uh, 9 months of this, which actually ended up being 2 years because of COVID. But um, after a while, I think you do get sort of muscle memory with it. So it was fine with the costume after a while. But yeah, sort of being in there and having not pressure, but you're excited and nervous because you want to make people proud as well. The
Yeah.
fans, you like Halo fans, you want to do right by them.
And being involved in this, and while you're on set and you're working with these incredible people that have got so much talent, what was your biggest learning kind of thing from it? What was the thing you took away that you really kind of maybe didn't know, or you may have taken for granted until you got on set? Was there something that you took away that you thought either I wasn't ready for that, or I've really learned something from this that when I go and do future roles, I can take this with me? This is so
Yeah,
valuable.
I think learning my value as an actor, I think there's a mentality that you have as a new actor, which is you're so grateful to be given the role that you kind of go in there a little bit cap in hand and a little bit kind of not wanting to antagonize, not wanting to, go, oh, I don't think this is right. But I think what this show kind of showed me, and especially with Pablo's leadership, was that you can as an actor, and actually it's your job to. So if you see something or feel something, you bring it up, like, and that's absolutely fine. Like, you're not being annoying. You're not being an annoying actor. Obviously, you could do it all the time, and maybe, but if you really feel quite deeply about something in the script or with your characterization of the character or whatever it is. And actually, I took that forward because I got a role after we wrapped and they're in something else. And there was an instance there which I would never have done before, but I had the confidence, I guess, to go, oh, I don't think that character would say that. Can we reword it? And they just went, right, yeah, that's fine, just take it out. And that was quite phenomenal. I think a realization for me as a sort of like actor that's coming up and doing new things.
And with COVID, like you said, it went from a 9 month project to over 2 years with everything that's stopped in production, and it's awful, but it seems like we're over the worst now, and stuff's coming
Yeah.
back to normal a little bit, and there's a bit more reality in the world where we can do things again. How is it now that series one's wrapped up? What's your kind of next sort of what we've got left? Nearly 7 months of the year. What are we kind of looking at for your next few steps? Have you got stuff lined up already? Are you already sorting for Halo season 2? Is there?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of filming a small role for a BBC dramedy. So I've got a couple of days shooting next week for that. And yeah, and then Halo season 2 has been greenlit. So that'll all start getting ready, and I guess we'll just wait and see what happens. And also because Halo's not come out in England yet.
Yeah.
So that needs to happen. And that's coming out June the 22nd. So that will be, it feels, yeah, kind of mad that it's come out in America and Canada and a couple of other territories, but hasn't in my home country yet. It'll be interesting seeing the reaction here as well.
And a lot of listeners for the Mark and Me podcast are people that want to get into the industry. So that's why I have such a range of guests. So I might have writers, producers, directors, people in bands, all different kind of walks of life. For yourself, that you are in the early stages of your career, you still have years ahead of you, and I'm sure you don't want to I'm sure you don't want to go anywhere soon. I think you kind of want to stick around. Yeah, retire after season 2.
Yeah. I want to do something in the next couple of years, probably.
but because it's such a hard world to get into, and you've talked about today the kind of approaching it, then taking a step back, and then going back again. What advice do you give to people that want to become like yourself and be an actor? Because it is such a hard world, isn't it, for people to kind of make a name for yourself in the industry. Like you said, if you haven't been given the best drama schools there, you're not going to have a name for yourself. If you haven't gone for the best education, you're not. But for yourself, you've done it by hard work and determination, I think.
I think it's sheer bloody mindedness, maybe. I don't.
It's a nice way of putting it.
I think there's so much luck involved. Also, I'm really tall. I'm 6'1", so I think the pre Game of Thrones, I don't know if I would have been seen for much. I think there would have been very much like a dearth of roles. The industry's changed a bit now, where it's kind of opening up, I guess, or at least being a little bit more open-minded.
Yeah.
To the notion of different body types and whatnot. And for me, I think, it's so hard though, isn't it? Because everyone works really hard to try and make a name for themselves. It's so hard to determine why one person gets a role and one doesn't, or achieves more than another, or it's hard to quantify, isn't it?
So if
Um,
you're looking at it as, I understand the pressure of answering that because it's so
yeah,
difficult and everyone has a different story. But is there maybe something you'd have done differently then, if you look back in hindsight now? Would
there's
you have?
something that I'm really thankful for, which um, like looking back in hindsight in terms of my approach to things, which is that I'm okay with being shit in the beginning. And I think sometimes a lot of people or actors can put pressure on themselves to be very good very quickly.
Yeah,
And and if they haven't succeeded in a certain amount of time, it's, and I think if you can take the pressure off yourself and allow yourself to just learn and allow yourself to be a bit crap in the beginning, then and have that open-mindedness and try to create luck for yourself by taking classes, by doing fringe theatre and short films, meeting people, and just bettering your craft and doing that and concentrating on your craft, I think that will hopefully open doors. But then I guess a lot of people do that anyway. It's so tough, isn't it? How do you
it's okay
differentiate?
to be shit. That's a good
It's
message.
okay to be shit.
Yeah.
We're all shit, aren't we, really, ultimately? But um, yeah, I guess taking the pressure off. I have friends, creative friends, who I think, like a filmmaker friend of mine, who um, I think in his mind he wants to create something epic as his
Yeah.
first feature. And I kept saying to him, why are you putting that pressure on you? You're going to need to crowdfund, tens of thousands of pounds. Like, you need to just make lots of things, small, inconsequential things,
Yeah.
like out of your system, get good at making shit things, and then go on to the big thing. But it was almost like that pressure to have to suddenly create this, like, your best work.
Yeah. Bring out The Godfather for your debut or Lord of the Rings or something. It's just not
Yeah,
going to happen.
not gonna happen. And that's okay. Like, it's not, doesn't work like that.
No, because eventually you will get to do Lord of the Rings, but you've got to do all the other stuff first.
Yeah. Yeah. So the little body steps, I think.
And something we do on the podcast, and this is my final question. I know you've listened to an episode today, so you might be prepared. But what I do is I ask the guest that comes on the podcast to choose the outro piece of music. So it can be a song by any band, a piece of music that you just love. But once we've wrapped up today's interview, it's all edited and it goes out there for the world to listen to. What would be your perfect song that just means so much to you that when I ask you the question, even though there's billions of songs out there, it's the one that you love the most that you think would be ideal for our episode we've done today?
So I had thought about this because I had listened to your Brandon Boyd episodes, and I would like Otis Redding, "A Change Is Gonna Come."
What a great
Um,
song.
I love Otis Redding's version. I love
Yeah.
Sam Cooke's version as well, of course, but Otis's version is heartbreaking for me, and it's the one song that still makes me cry, and it means a lot. I don't know. It used to be, my parents used to play a lot of like old soul and funk and stuff in the house, and we listened to a lot of Otis Redding, and that song just always got me. Um, and yeah, I love it so much.
I know what'll happen now. I'll end up editing this, then listening to stuff like My Girl Again and sitting on the dock of the
Oh,
bay and go through all the songs and then have this whole period of just listening solidly to Otis Redding for the next 6 months. And it'll be like, oh, this always happens with the podcast.
oh, yeah? Do you end up going through the
Yeah, I've not
discography?
listened to Otis Redding for probably about 5 years, unless it's on like, Smooth FM when I'm driving or something. It just oddly throws up. That's showing my age. But you know what I mean? That's when I listen to one of those songs, I'm going to be like, oh God, I love this guy. His
So,
voice is unreal.
you're not listening to like Kerrang anymore or anything like that, is
I
that?
do, but it's I don't know. I'm in that era where I never wanted to sound like a granddad who's always like, oh, but back in my day. But I find that I go back and listen to the bands I love. So
Yeah.
Bands like Queens of the Stone Age and Pearl Jam,
Oh,
so all these bands, I keep going back to them because I love them. So anyone that comes along now, I'm like, no, no, I'm sorry, you're not the Foo Fighters, you're not Green Day,
exactly.
so it doesn't feel as good.
Well, that's it. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, and Chili's were my bands growing
Yeah.
up. And Nirvana. And I saw Slipknot when I was 16. That was my first gig
Wow.
in Brighton.
That's an insane first
Like
gig. I mean, one of the
hardcore.
best live bands I've ever seen in my life. It's not just a music concert, it's a production. They're all in their suits. There's 9 of them running around on stage causing absolute chaos, but it's an experience. And unless you see it, I don't think people should say a bad word about Slipknot because they are performers.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't been in a no. The last time I was in a mosh pit was a few years ago at Primavera with Idols.
Oh,
That
Idols are incredible.
yeah, insane. And I've only seen them there at Primavera, but I'd love to see them like at
They're
Brixton
supporting
Castle.
Pearl Jam in July. So I'm like, okay, that's a win-win.
Yeah, and they were such an incredible performer that they when we were there, we were actually just walking past the stage by accident, and we were like, oh, should we just wait here and see who's on? And then Idols came on, and we were all blown away. Never heard them before.
That's the
Never
best way
heard
to
of
fall in love
them.
with a band, isn't it?
Oh, insane! Yeah, just yeah, incredible. And so now I'm like, yeah, love it.
Amazing. Natasha, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Mark and Me podcast. I've really enjoyed today. I hope our paths meet again and we get you back on maybe for season 2 or whatever else comes about. But honestly, your time today has been much appreciated and I've loved every minute of it.
Oh no, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it too.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the amazing Natasha Colzan. It was so good to sit down and talk to Natasha and her be so honest and so open about the industry, the way it works, and getting into film and TV. It was such a great chat, so much energy, and I felt like we just hit it off straight away. So thanks for Natasha for coming on the show. And if you haven't yet, check out the amazing TV series Halo, which we discussed in great detail on that interview. It's on Paramount Plus right now and it is phenomenal. Please, if you go and check it out, check out Natasha's performance and let me know what you think. This podcast survives by you guys at home retweeting, sharing these episodes and putting them on your Facebook and Instagram, or just telling your friends about how much you love the podcast. If you really enjoyed today's episode, just hop on to markandme.com, because on there there's links to the Facebook page, Twitter and Instagram account. On there you can share the episodes and it costs you absolutely nothing, but makes a huge difference to Mark and Me. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please retweet the episode, share it on your wall on Facebook, or post it on your stories on Instagram. It really can go a huge way for Mark and Me and means the absolute world to me. And the podcast cannot survive without my Patreon. Each and every month, people sign up on there and have exclusive prizes thanks to the guys at Richer Sounds. But not only that, the money that you donate goes right back into the podcast, allows me to go to events, festivals, gigs, movie premieres and conduct these interviews, which means more and more interviews for you guys at home. You can do this for as little as £1 every month, and at the moment you're guaranteed a minimum of 2 episodes each and every week. Seriously, I really need the support, and if you're listening now and have enjoyed today, it's just like buying me a coffee or a Mars bar. It really is that cheap, but the more people that get behind me allows me to record more and more, so please, the support is so appreciated. I'll be back in only a few days' time with a brand new episode, so until then, look after yourself, watch the TV series of Halo, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
River, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change has gotta come now. Ooh, yes it is. Oh my, oh my. It's been too hard living, oh my. And I'm afraid to die. I've asked my brother, will you help me please? Oh, now, oh, now. He turned me down, and then I asked my dear mother, oh. I said, mother, I'm down on my knees. It's been a time that I thought, Lord, this will last very long. Oh, now, oh. Somehow I thought I was still able to try to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. Just like I said, I went to my little bitty brother. Oh, my little brother. I asked my brother, help me please. Oh, now. He turned me down, and then I go to my little mother, my dear mother. Oh, now. I said, mother, I'm down on my knees. But there was a time that I thought, Lord, this could last very long. Oh, my. Somehow I thought I was still able to try to carry on. It's been a